So here now to weigh in after this historic election, Democratic strategist and Harris campaign consultant David Morey, along with the News Nation political contributor and former Republican congressional candidate Denise Gitsham. Thank you both for your time today. Denise, I would like to start with you. The president-elect giving a relatively unifying victory speech overnight. I'd like to listen to a portion of that.
I'm asking every citizen all across our land to join me in this noble and righteous endeavor. That's what it is. It's time to put the divisions of the past 4 years behind us. It's time to unite. And we're going to try. We have to try. And it's going to happen. Success will bring us together.
All right. So we heard that, but we also know that it was such a divisive campaign, and overall the state of the American political system is so divided. So Denise, do you think the president-elect will try to make an attempt to work with Democrats, to work with the other side?
I do believe he's going to try, because I think he understands what all Americans understand, which is that a house divided cannot stand. You know, we have so much more in common than we have the differences that we focus on in the middle of an election season. And I know that there are great people on both sides of the aisle that want to see America survive and thrive. So whoever that winner is on election night can determine whether or not you're for America and for the person that you disagree with, because we all want the same thing. We want to flourish. We want to have a fantastic future and a more secure future. And I think that's something that will be incumbent on President Trump to set the tone on. But how Vice President Harris responds today will be very telling as to whether or not that's a tone that the Democrats will strike.
And I do want to talk about that response that we will hear from the vice president. But David, first, the same question for you. Let's listen to a bit more from what we heard from the now president-elect overnight.
The task before us will not be easy, but I will bring every ounce of energy, spirit, and fight that I have in my soul to the job that you've entrusted to me. This is a great job. There's no job like this. This is the most important job in the world.
So, David, for you, do you think there will be a true attempt at unity?
Well, I think we have to try. We're Americans first, as Denise said. And, you know, I work as an outside advisor over the last month or two for the campaign. I don't feel this loss like the people that have been working with her for years. This is a tough one for the Democrats. You know, but as Toynbee said, the great British historian, you know, we go back and forth across the football field. There's another election in 2 years. I think one thing that the Democrats need to do is learn the lessons from this campaign. And we have to, you know, we are the guardrails of our Constitution and democracy. And the Democrats historically at different times have been able to learn those key lessons. I'd make one more quick point. You know, the vice president was unable to get outside the incumbent curse. The incumbents around the world are losing. You know, we specialize in developing insurgent change leader strategies. She was not able to assume that mantle. From Canada to France, from South Korea to Japan, the incumbents are getting killed. And, you know, ultimately that was the battle here. 74% wrong track numbers, 40% approval for Biden. On the issue of the pocketbook and immigration, it was just too much for her in 100 days to conquer. So I think we have to pull together. We have to continue to make government work. The final point I make is the reason is we have 5 fronts of wars these days. An issue, you know, foreign policy was not a big issue in this campaign, but the truth of the matter is from Ukraine to the Middle East to Taiwan to North Korea, we have gigantic foreign policy challenges, and we have to be together as Americans to battle and deal with those and manage those.
Yeah, I want to talk about that as well. Hopefully we will get to that as well. There are so many unique aspects of this campaign, like any campaign, Denise, but we know that Donald Trump significantly overperformed basically every poll that has been cited since this race started. What does that tell you?
It tells us that he was messaging to people that a lot of us, maybe those of us in the news and maybe those of us who operate in circles where we're making policy decisions and advising don't understand. A lot of issues went right past us. We never grasped them. We couldn't understand how the working class and those that were really struggling to put food on their tables felt about this economy. And every single poll told us, and yet for some reason Democrats kept going to abortion as if that were a #1 issue when it never rose above, issue #4 for most Americans. And we saw that reflected, but what matters now, I think, even more than looking back, is really determining, as we were talking about earlier, how we decide to treat each other. Because we can't depend on our leaders and our politicians to determine what kind of a tone we're going to set. That is incumbent on us as Americans to dig down deep and recognize that the same foreign threats that we were just talking about, that my Democratic colleague was just alluding to, that is not our greatest threat. Our greatest threat is our own internal division, and we can resolve that amongst ourselves regardless of how Trump or Harris or any other leader decides to proceed.
And David, to expand a bit upon what you were saying there, and again, I know that you worked as more of an outer circle consultant versus an inner circle, but what do you see as the Democrats' biggest misstep here? And really, what are some of the biggest lessons moving forward?
Well, I think they misunderstood or prioritized the pocketbook issues and the immigration issue, and you could put some of that on the Biden administration. It's hard to deal with that over 100 days if you're VP Harris and fix that. I think, there's a need to find the missing center where, and Denise is, I think, alluding to this, where this country starts to work together and get stuff done. The Democrats got out of what they were good at under Clinton, which is problem solution. If you look at the Trump campaign, they did a very good job at presenting problem solution. That's what the American people are looking for, particularly on pocketbook issues on immigration. And, they're looking for a party to get outside of the polarization. Donald Trump will have tremendous challenges in that area because, there's a lot of wounds here. And, the other side, when they win, the big mistake they make is to gloat, and that'll put gasoline on top of the fire. Mm-hmm. So I think he's got a real big job here to try and pull the country together. And the Democrats have a really big job to reboot the party and get ready for the next election, as I said.
And Denise, let's talk about the foreign aspect of all this. We've seen leaders of foreign nations reacting to this win. What do you think Trump's win potentially means for the war in Gaza, for the war in Ukraine?
Those are great questions because, as you know, the Trump campaign and he as an individual has talked about not wanting Americans, not wanting to send Americans into endless foreign wars. And there's a battle within my party between that vision, that Reagan vision of peace through strength and this populist streak that's more, not even isolationist, but let's just say maybe more reflective about why we get involved in wars and what the cost is to Americans. And I think that's a healthy conversation that we all have to have. And I don't think it only sits on my side of the aisle. I think it's something that Democrats are going to have to grapple with as well. But there's going to be I think that there's going to be a lot more thinking before we charge into wars. But I also think because of who Trump is, because people don't really know how he's going to respond to any sort of aggression to America, there might be more of a pause on external aggressors' parts in determining, in making a rash decision about whether they want to come after our interests either on our territory, on our land, or in territories abroad or allies. And so, I know that he's going to be close to Israel. One thing I know for certain is just based on his own family and having Ivanka and Jared in his family who are Jewish, he's got a love for Israel that I think is going to bear out in his foreign policy. And I think that's a great thing because they are our closest ally. And I think that we should stand with our allies.
Well, and David, over to you. We have yet to hear from Vice President Harris. Her campaign says she will be speaking. That is supposed to happen around 4 p.m. Eastern. What do you think we'll hear?
Well, I think she will be gracious. She will concede the election. She will say democracy worked. I mean, the good news here is that it's not a close election, really. I mean, 1,300 counties across the United States, Donald Trump overperformed in 90% of them. So this is, not a small win, even though the electoral vote still seems a little small. He won the popular vote first time in 20 years that a Republican has done that. So I think she'll reach a hand out. I think you're going to have a very professional transition between the Biden-Harris administration and the Trump-Vance administration. I think they're good at that. Democrats are good at that. You know, they can go to a bipartisan place when they need to, and I think that's what will happen. I think she'll try and, you know, give a hint about how this party reboots. The way it reboots, by the way, is the very talented governors in some of the states, Westmore and, for example, Josh Shapiro here in Pennsylvania, are probably the future of the party. But that's going to have to be worked out. And, you know, they're going to have to bubble up the grassroots solutions where parties, when they get beat, reboot and come back stronger. That is the strength of democracy. And I think she'll talk a lot about that and how democracy's resilience is paramount and how we have to be Americans here, not Democrats or Republicans.
Yeah, here we are the day after this historic election. Denise Gitsham, David Morey, thank you both for your time.
Thank you so much, Nicole.